Independent animation. Over the past few years, indie animation has been absolutely blowing up. Most recently with shows like Hazbin Hotel and The Amazing Digital Circus being put on streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime respectively. And as this new wave of creativity and independence rushes into the industry, I feel like it's more important than ever that we're all familiar with who and what to look out for in the indie animation space. So, with the help of my good friends RT60 and 4i Freak, I'll be looking at 4 animated projects to create the ultimate indie animation for dummies guide. Also, look at the Patreon, link in the description. The most recent of these pilots that I've gathered actually comes from a fellow cartoon nerd here on YouTube, LS Mark. Now our boy Mark is fairly well known around these parts, and as such was able to get a bunch of other internet boys to feature in this pilot. I'm talking Oni Plays, Zach Hadel, Cadicarus, his wife. Catching up follows Clay and Rob going to a club and encountering club problems. Overpriced drinks, loud music, bitch niggas, it all kicks off. Clay is your typical antisocial, anxiety-prone, average kid no one understands, while Rob is an extroverted, fun-loving guy who's always trying to make new friends. The pilot makes it very clear early on that these two have very different outlooks on life while looking through the lens of a night at the club. Rob is excited, constantly reminding Clay about the event, dressing up all nice and shit, and Clay really doesn't want to go there. He sees it as a pointless endeavor where he's going to see people from his school he doesn't like, and spend absurd amounts of money on drinks and just getting there in general.
The little note on the back, God help me. I like how they kind of show 2 different social issues. Rob being this extrovert, he can talk to anybody, he's cool with it. But he's like too oblivious to notice when people are being negative towards him, which is something that Clay seems to not have. He knows to leave people alone and not spend his money, but he can't talk to somebody to save his life.
This is a duo as old as time, and one that appears a lot in animation too. I will say that the overall premise and characters shown here do feel a bit generic, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but everything that happens in this pilot feels kind of expected and predictable. That isn't to say it wasn't enjoyable most of the time, but I just felt like I'd seen these 2 characters basically everywhere in media, and they don't feel unique enough. I don't feel like the writing did enough to make me attached to any of them specifically. From what I've seen, a lot of people who watched the pilot seem to attach to Clay or his relationship with Rob. These characters These characters feel made for those YouTube compilations where they go, oh my gosh, he's just like me for real. And while there's nothing wrong with that inherently, it's just not my preferred type of character writing. The art style is very 2000. If you know anything about Mark, you know how much he loves 2000s cartoons, so it's to be expected. I see a lot of similarities to Fairly Odd Parents, even down to the way he draws the characters' hands. And I like that he wasn't afraid to wear his inspos on his sleeve here. And there are some fun character designs that reference other media he's also a fan of.
Anyone that watched Mark's content before they saw the pilot, you can very clearly tell how inspired by the Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom this dude is.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, the animation kind of reminds me of Very Odd Parents.
With how rounded it is and stuff. It looks so sick.
Overall, the show does have a nice look to it. And after seeing his behind the scenes video and seeing just how difficult it was to get it to look like this, it just makes me appreciate it all the more. My favorite moments in this pilot do honestly come from Clay though. I think it goes back to that point of the characters being written to feel relatable in that way, but I would be a hypocrite to say it doesn't work sometimes.
Hi there. What? I said hi there.
I can't hear you.
I said.
What'd you say?
Hi there.
What?
I said hi there.
Very true.
It's crazy because in that one moment, it felt like all the focus and attention was on him. But then the minute he walks away, everybody's already forgotten about that whole moment. That's kind of a clever way of showing none of this shit even matters.
Yeah,
You'll have an
Exactly.
So overall, I think catching up was alright. I can definitely see Mark's vision for the show, and while I think the overall pilot had much to be desired, it wasn't bad at all. I'm just more impressed that someone who started off making reviews like myself could actually turn their idea into reality, and I think it serves as a message that anybody can do it. Next up, we have Ramshackle. Created by Z Chen and starting out as a webcomic, Ramshackle follows 3 characters, Vinny, Stone, and Skip, who are known as Scraps, aka poor people. One day they find a baby hidden beneath some trash, who they name Maggot and decide to take under their wing. We see them robbing rich people, fighting rich people, and even eating the rich. The pilot has very anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist messaging throughout. The rich are portrayed as evil and gluttonous, living very vice-filled lives. In the episode, you can see tiny little references and jokes that critique these aspects of the capitalist, consumerist world that not only the characters inhabit, but the one that we do too. I think that it's not only an interesting message that sets up a lot of avenues for them to explore in the future, but also a message we don't see enough of in animation. And considering how animation gets treated, especially right now, it's one we need more than ever.
They're like portrayed as like the villains or some sort.
Yeah.
Or like the bad guys. Yeah, and while the poor people who lives in poverty are like seen as the good guys, so.
It's pretty interesting how that's going to play out because it's like, at the same time, it's going to be these guys doing these evil acts, you know, like robbing people. I'm assuming at some point someone's dying, like they're going to beat the shit out of somebody.
The pilot gives a lot of attention to the three main characters and how they interact with each other. Skip is an optimistic character and the most caring and innocent of the trio. He's very moral driven and acts a lot more on He's very moral driven and acts a lot more on what he's feeling than logic. Like this scene where he stops in the middle of robbing someone to teach them a moral.
You know, letting your kid express themselves is actually quite healthy for their development.
Vinny is the most energetic of the three. She's hyper, in your face, and has lots of great lines that carry a lot of the pilot's comedy. She doesn't take shit from anybody, even her own friends, and is even the one who insists that they keep Maggot instead of leaving him. However, the fan favorite when we were watching the pilot became abundantly clear.
I kind of like the logical one because like he's kind of cool.
Look at his face. It's the fucking love stone off rip.
And I think his character has like a lot of potential to be like the foil to the main two because they seem a lot more optimistic, you know, all that stuff where he's like the more logical one. He's
And like a whole thing of him breaking out of his shell.
He's literally like, we ate shoes last week. We're not going to be able to take care of a child. You know what I'm saying?
Stone is a logical, laid-back thinker whose main motivations all derive from his need to survive. Now, of course, all three of them do need to survive by any means, but Stone seems to have that as his main motivation at all times. Initially, he doesn't care about Maggot and suggests that they just leave him, as the optics of them taking care of a baby aren't the best. However, when Maggot proves himself to be useful to the team, he turns his back on that stance.
It's that type of anti-hero thing where we follow them along so we understand their motives a little bit more. And I feel like that would be really cool if they did that as well with maybe some of the rich people. So like we can see like their side of it as well. And I feel like that always sets up for good stories, and it kind of sets up this whole show to have a lot of that where they play around with it, and I really hope they do because that's a fun angle to come at it with.
It's important to remember that while the trio are the main characters and are simply doing what they need to survive, they're not exactly the most morally right of characters. Yes, they are poor in a universe where the rich are monsters, but they still rob and kill. It would be nice to see them delve into the morality of this world and characters in the later episodes. The pilot does a great job at character writing as well. The voice actors do a fantastic job. And even through non-speaking parts of the episode like the fight scene. Through their unique fighting styles, you can tell exactly what type of characters they are. Speaking of the fight scenes, the animation truly shines in those high action moments. There's lots of camera movement, effects, all that. It's great to see something so high quality come from something independently funded, further showing that we're getting closer to the day where we don't have to solely rely on these big corporations and services to get animated shows out there. Something so polished and clean coming from a DIY approach makes it clear that it really can be done. Ramshackle provided laughs, great animation, a unique sense of style, and some bold yet welcome messaging. And overall, I can't wait to see more of it. Spooky Month is another pilot created by fellow YouTube boy, Senior Pella. The internet influences and humor can be felt all the way throughout the 4 episodes of Spooky Month that we watched. From random silliness, booga booga, to the absurd, and the questionable.
I heard there's a spooky party in the house on the hill. That's where my uncle takes me.
What?
I remember first watching him back in like 4th grade, TF2 and then Shell Nut. That was also when I first got introduced to Team Fortress 2.
Oh, you were not lying about it getting better.
I don't like this place.
Yeah, and they got voice actors.
The series is essentially about them going around playing Halloween cosplay every day. It really started off as a joke animation for Halloween that somehow turned into an ongoing series with an actual plot, though it is mostly centered on telling jokes. That's where it shines. It feels like a mixture of that 2000s type of storytelling where the plot was just a way to tell as many jokes as possible, with internet humor. The phrase Spooky Month has already gained lots of notoriety online, with hundreds and hundreds of animations of various characters doing the iconic dance. If I'm being honest, most shows probably wish they could have even an ounce of the cultural relevance that Spooky Month has. It's one of those few animations that really understands its audience, understands internet humor without feeling pandering or try-hard, because the people making it really understand that humor, that culture. I won't lie, when we were watching this, we were all tired as fuck, and I'm really going off memory here right now. This section about to be short as hell.
There we go. Another reason why I love Spooky Month is Toho reference. It's already known fact that Cedar Pell is like a huge fan of Toho.
Overall though, I enjoyed Spooky Month. It was funny, it was nice to see the animation and voice acting improve over the course of the 4 episodes, and there's honestly no telling where this world goes from here. Last but certainly not least is Lackadaisy. Based on the webcomic of the same name created by Tracy Butler, it's set in the 1920s during the Prohibition era. Rocky, Freckle, and Ivy are part of an alcohol smuggling gang known as Lackadaisy. They have beef with another drank smuggling set, the Marigolds. After finding a case of some rare alcohol, they get ready to smuggle it back to their base. However, the Marigolds catch them off guard and chase them down to try and stop them. Off rip, this is one of the most beautifully animated indie pilots I've ever seen. It has very fluid animation, giving the characters many ways to express themselves through their movements. The backgrounds of the show are stunning to look at too, something RT noticed.
It's like the Great Gatsby mixed with Tom and Jerry. I even noticed it when I saw the backgrounds earlier, like on the Golden Bridge. That just looked like, when I zoomed out to get the wide view, it just looked like something you'd see in like an old Tom and Jerry like hand-drawn cartoon where all the backgrounds were like these beautiful paintings and stuff. And all the slapstick too. It's screaming Tom and Jerry.
This shit is so beautiful already. Like, this is all like crowd-funded, people from the internet actually just coming together and funding something that looks like this.
But I'm liking the vibe it's setting up, and I just appreciate that it's here. Just walking down this bridge with the golden lights and all that shit. Oh my god.
Very pleasing, like beautiful to watch.
Hell yeah.
The art is very reminiscent of Tom and Jerry and other classic cartoons from that golden age, where studios like Warner Brothers were constantly putting out bangers, and Disney nearly killed animation as a medium, but that's a story for another day. The 3 main characters do a pretty good job story-wise, with Rocky, the de facto leader of the group, being a clear standout when we were watching.
I love how over-the-top dramatic he is.
You know, I love the theater kid leader.
The art of the trio, like making just a good trio, is like something I want to see a lot more of. The main characters so far is like he has potential to be a very strong, very memorable main character. Like that one dude from The Bad Guys.
And shout out to Freckle my goat right now.
He has a theater kid vibe to him. He's very dramatic and over the top. He's noticeably positive too, seeing a bright side in almost every messed up situation they get into. When their car is being shot up and he asks Freckle to run the switch, he couldn't seem any fucking happier. He's also just a tiny bit insane in the brain too. The most clear example being this scene where he's throwing dynamite at the Marigolds and he just treats the whole situation like a stage play. Another character we couldn't stop talking about was Mordecai, the cold and calculated leader of the Marigold, who despite being quiet in his demeanor had no trouble becoming one of the most interesting characters the show has to offer already.
About you getting sentimental about old times.
Oh my god, is that a deadly quiet villain?
You know who he's already giving me vibes of? Toffee from Star vs. the Forces of Evil.
And they even imply here that there's something deeper? Getting sentimental about last time? I want to see this!
It was like, nah, it's not worth it.
There's so much about him, bro. Oh my god, they're setting him up to be a perfect villain.
As you can probably tell, the pilot shines at character writing. One of my favorite scenes is the one I mentioned before where Freckle shoots up the ops car, and he goes absolutely fucking wild. King Vaughn would be afraid of this man. When they finally escape them for a brief period, you can tell that his switch in demeanor is something he can't control, and wants to avoid from happening as much as he can. Though my personal favorite character is Mitzi, the ringleader of the Lackadaisies, who instead of feeling like a boss, feels like a cool southern mom. She's not opposed to criticizing the trio after the heist was a resounding fail, but you can tell she really cares about them and just wants what's best for them.
I love Mitzi as a character. She just gives off like such southern mom type vibes. It's really, I really like that.
That voice hit.
The pilot also reveals that she is a widow, giving her the most backstory of any character so far, and I really want them to dive into that later on. Lackadaisy has some real potential to be a frontrunner in this indie animation space, and I can't wait to see more of it. Thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to RT and 4i for hopping on this joint. Subscribe to the Patreon or buy me a coffee if you want. Have a good day and take care.